It's safe to say that The Mandalorian Season 2 blew me away. So much happened over the course of 8 episodes that it was almost impossible to think about what I loved the most. So today's video, I wanted to discuss what I think are the 10 best moments of this entire season. And of course, I also think that we are going to have wildly different answers for this, but it also makes it fun. Also, if you are new here to the channel, please consider subscribing to see my future weekly uploads. Starting at number 10, the Krayt Dragon eating a bantha. A lot of folks might say that the final showdown with the Krayt Dragon was incredible, and to that I agree. However, in Chapter 9, The Marshal, the first appearance of the Krayt Dragon blew me away for a few reasons. The scale of the Krayt Dragon was overwhelmingly similar to how the giant sandworms of Dune make me feel. It was very otherworldly, and it was a bit disturbing to watch it devour a helpless bantha. All we really see is the head exploding out of the sand as quickly as it came, and then it's gone. Just the head alone gives us this sense of awe as to how big this beast must be. The other reason I thought this was incredible was the fact that Jon Favreau took a vague concept from A New Hope and fully fleshed it out into a true monster on screen. In A New Hope, all we see were the skeletal remains of this creature, but now we see it in its full glory. And there are some other mediums where these dragons have debuted, but with that said, I have never played those games or read those books. So for myself, the Krayt Dragon was a huge novelty to me. And the final reason this blew me away was because of the production value. The initial scene with the Krayt Dragon screamed, "This season is going to look remarkable." And for the most part, that remained true. Number 9, Moff Gideon's Science Lab. In Chapter 12, titled The Siege, Team Mando destroys an Imperial base on Navarro, but inside this base was a science lab of sorts where we find out that experiments regarding blood transfusions with high M count blood, aka Force-sensitive blood, are being put into volunteers for one reason or another. These volunteers are seen to be lifeless, deformed humanoids after receiving these transfusions. This scene is easily one of the scariest, weirdest scenes in The Mandalorian. And the reason I like this now, as opposed to my initial comments during my review, is that this clearly is setting up a roadmap to the creation of a Snoke-type character, or even aiding in the creation of a functional clone body for Emperor Palpatine. It's way too similar and seemingly based off something regarding Palpatine for it to be mere coincidence at this point. And personally, I like when Star Wars gets a bit disturbing. Plus, regardless of what we think this is, something so small like failed experiments allows us to partake in fun speculation about what Moff Gideon is even up to or his overarching plan as a villain. Regardless of how you feel about the sequel trilogy, they aren't going anywhere, and just like the Clone Wars made the prequels feel fleshed out and less clunky, The Mandalorian and other live-action series will fill in the necessary gaps of the previous 25 years of Star Wars history. And I think that's okay, and yeah, like I said, this scene now is just really cool to me, one of the coolest moments of Season 2. Number 8, the Gamorrean guards fighting to the death. The opening of Season 1 was perfect. Din Djarin went to meet with an alien, Gor Koresh, to learn about the whereabouts of other Mandalorians. Upon entering this building, we see that there are Gamorrean guards basically cage fighting with vibro-axes. Incredible. Return of the Jedi was my favorite Star Wars film for basically my entire life until maybe a few years back. So this scene felt like, oh, this is what happened to the remnants of those guards from Jabba's palace. Now they're just entertainment somewhere and killing each other. I thought it was very cool and surprisingly interesting to see these aliens fighting one another. It was almost like sumo wrestling in Star Wars at times. And one thing about this too is I love how the show uses recognizable characters in novel ways to show us how the galaxy has changed after the Empire was defeated, or after the outfall of the original trilogy. It just keeps pushing things and showing us creatures we already know in new situations, which actually makes it feel fresh. Number 7, Bo-Katan saving Din's ass from the Quarren. In the episode titled The Heiress, we got to meet live-action Bo-Katan, which was very, very well done. Originally, for this ranking, I wanted to talk about Bo-Katan saving Din aboard the boat. And while that was a very epic scene, a great reveal, the one that really got my blood pumping was when Din was saved again at night just merely walking home. A bunch of Quarren surrounded him, and it looked like he was a goner. But then Bo-Katan and the Night Owls dropped in. And I love that Bo-Katan was being a smartass with the Quarren who lost a brother, which is why they surrounded Din Djarin, saying, "You killed my brother." But when Bo-Katan drops in, she goes, "No, I killed your brother." And then she releases the fury upon them. It's a very quick scene, but it's a very powerful bit of action. And it doubles down on a no-nonsense approach that Bo-Katan has when dealing with people in her way. It also demonstrates to us, even if we are unfamiliar with the character, which might be the case for a lot of people watching The Mandalorian, that Bo-Katan and her comrades, these Night Owls, are not to be underestimated. And beyond that, I just really like more Mandalorians in The Mandalorian. It's where I want to see season 3 go. I want to see a whole lot of Mandalorians after Din Djarin, challenging him for that Darksaber. So hopefully that's where season 3 is going. But yes, Bo-Katan saving Din Djarin's ass from the Quarren round 2, perfection. Number 6, Grogu at school. When Grogu was dropped off at Star Wars school, at first I was thinking, well, this is a bit strange, but then the situation became super hilarious. Grogu, while 50, is basically an infant in a classroom full of 10-year-olds, and the one thing on his mind, snacking. The exchange between Grogu holding his hands out for some blue cookies that another student had, he was eating them just across from Grogu, made me laugh out loud. It was super funny to see that other kid look at Grogu like, what do you need? No, this is my stuff. And then Grogu, not taking no for an answer, ends up using the Force to pull the cookies towards himself without the kid knowing, and I thought that was hilarious. There's nothing more satisfying than seeing Grogu's cookie face. You know, he's just staring back at the kid who refused to share with him. Is it a questionable use of the Force? Maybe. But it was cute as hell and led to a funny scene later on in the episode of Grogu puking in the Razor Crest. Number 5, Boba returns. I will be very honest here. I never grew up with an affinity for Boba Fett. I never thought of him as integral to anything beyond looking cool and being a bounty hunter in The Empire Strikes Back. My lack of interest might be due to Return of the Jedi being the most watched Star Wars movie in my collection and the first Star Wars film that I ever saw. And Boba isn't really that cool in Return of the Jedi, so yeah, I think that makes sense. But I have to say, the second Boba Fett showed up in The Tragedy, laying waste to stormtroopers on Tython with his Gaddafi stick, was unbelievable. It was over-the-top brutal and one of the most visually pleasing sequences of an individual smashing faces. Beyond that, when Boba dons the armor he lost, his brutality somehow got turned up to another notch, finally showing us that true badassery that is Boba Fett. Once Boba Fett stood up behind a stormtrooper and then backhanded him, I instantly went, yep, I freaking love this character right now. And now that we were able to watch the behind-the-scenes documentary for season 2, the way that Robert Rodriguez crafted this entire sequence of events makes it even more exciting. And now I'm just invested in Boba Fett, and I care about what he's going to be up to in the Book of Boba Fett. I still know nothing about what that show's going to be. But with a live-action return like this in The Mandalorian, I'm sure that that show is bound to please me. Number 4, The Mandalorian vs. Moff Gideon. A lot of us already speculated that Din would face Moff Gideon, and while that was ultimately the case, how it went down was a feat for the eyes. We have only seen the Darksaber in action via animation, but now we see it in all of its glory in live action, and it was so intense. Moff Gideon is a ruthless warrior with the blade, and seemingly very well trained. Din, equipped with a pure Beskar spear, also showed off some of the most intricate fighting I've seen from the show, if not even the new Saga films themselves. This duel came off like an immovable object versus an unstoppable force, at least initially, and it's possible that Moff Gideon purposefully chose to lose, but that's up for debate. Either way, the duel floored me, and watching both individuals wield their weapons was super fun to watch. And it's a good thing that Din is covered in Beskar, or Moff Gideon might have made quick business of him. And I think this duel also seems to hint at Din's ultimate destiny of wielding the Darksaber itself, which circles back to Moff Gideon potentially losing on purpose to pit Bo-Katan and Din against one another. Let them destroy themselves, and then maybe he can swoop back in. Most likely not going to be the case though. Number 3, Ahsoka's entrance. Witnessing Ahsoka battle soldiers on the planet Corvus in the forest was perfect. It was one of the best openings of The Mandalorian. The white blade coming into frame immediately gave me the chills because I knew what was going down. We saw Ahsoka presumably in her prime laying waste to these magistrate soldiers with such ease. And for myself, the standout part of this was Ahsoka using the fog to her advantage. She was like a ninja in the night, turning her blades off to hide herself, then coming out of the darkness to strike again. And the fear that the soldiers had felt real. Ahsoka was like a light side demon, if you will, coming in to take you out. And I'm also glad that the sound engineer and mixer decided to keep some of those faint screams in the distance. Some folks dislike this brutal portrayal of Ahsoka, however, given her history and the current circumstances, I find this to be a non-issue. This is Ahsoka, a force to be reckoned with, trained by Anakin Skywalker, and honestly now I can't wait to see her show. Number 2, Mayfeld in Operation Cinder. Mayfeld, played by Bill Burr, gave the performance of a lifetime when discussing Operation Cinder in the episode titled The Believer. We got to see a side to this character that I completely did not expect. Season 1 didn't really give me any reason to latch on to Mayfeld beyond the fact that I love Bill Burr. But now, with Season 2 and his history of losing his friends and comrades in Operation Cinder while serving the Empire, paints him in a brand new light. Sure, Mayfeld is a smartass, antagonistic, he's seemingly selfish, but under all that is a guy who can barely get through a day anymore without thinking about what the Empire did to him at Burning Con. Beyond that, when Mayfeld is discussing the merits of Operation Cinder with his old superior officer, it's clear that this event has brought all of Mayfeld's anger towards the Empire back to the surface, with this entire exchange ending in the murder of Valen Hess, who thinks everyone who died at Burning Con were heroes of the Empire, a means to an end. To Mayfeld, they were just sacrificed for absolutely no reason other than to just maintain fear across the galaxy. Plus, the fact that Mayfeld learns that these Imperial remnants plan to do something even more vile than Operation Cinder with the Rhydonium viscerally affects him. I can't stress enough how well Bill Burr pulled off PTSD. As a man who has actually seen that in real life, it made me curious about if Bill Burr actually has PTSD. But man, it was a powerful scene to see Mayfeld go, "That's enough," and waste a man in front of him responsible for thousands upon thousands of innocent people's deaths. As he says at the end, we all need to sleep at night, right? And finally, number 1, which you probably all guessed, Luke Skywalker in his return. Luke Skywalker saving the day by destroying Dark Troopers blew my mind into 5,000 pieces. Never in a million years did I think this show would incorporate Luke, and to be honest, initially I thought it would be a very, very bad idea. I was wrong. This episode showed us Luke Skywalker, the legend, in his prime after Return of the Jedi. The way he easily navigates the ship, using the Force and his saber as if it was just a dance, was entrancing, and something I realized that I really did want to see. I will admit, the CGI face of Luke looked a bit scary, but beyond that, I was so pumped. I really appreciated how insane this scene was. A lot of folks think it makes no sense for Luke to show up, but I disagree now. Being able to see Luke during his prime, leading up to his brief fall as a master, is something worth exploring. Plus, it opens up the opportunity to help the sequels make a bit more sense, just like when the Clone Wars aided the prequels. In my very honest opinion, Luke Skywalker should get a series that spans about 10 years of his life so that we can see Luke in his prime and why in the end Luke became disillusioned with his legend. I'm not saying that this will end with the destruction of Luke's temple or anything, but something along the lines of how the prequels demonstrated that while the Jedi were aligned in the light, their methods might be questionable. And in the end, they were glorified soldiers, which is anti-Jedi. So that does it for my top 10 moments from Season 2 of The Mandalorian. We will all have wildly different favorite moments, so I'm excited to see what yours are down below in the comment section. And again, if you are new here, please consider subscribing, leaving a like, and sharing the video around. As always, may the Force be with you. AT-AT is signing off.